On Steam, there exists a dimension between purchase and regret. One where you have a brief window to decide whether or not to keep your game. One where it's within 2 hours or 2 weeks. That's for you to decide in the Steam Refund Zone. Over the most recent history, Crimson Desert has been a very divisive game. From what I first heard on social media about it, I thought, oh, this thing looks cool. I might give it a try. The only thing that was keeping me as like a big barrier originally was just the fact that the only game I have heard from them was Black Desert Online. And even though I played a little bit of it, I didn't quite enjoy it that much. So I was very hesitant with going in on it. And one of the reasons why this game is divisive is because what's going on with the gaming industry and the culture right now. And right now, there is a big look at games being developed in the East and games being developed in the West, with certain titles being developed in the East receiving a lot more praise in recent time than titles being developed in the West. Such titles being Stellar Blade, which I've never played, and Black Myth Wukong, which I enjoyed, but like most Souls-like games, I got my ass kicked and I hit the wall. I had waited a little bit to get into Crimson Desert because I wanted to make sure for myself that people were viewing the game based on how the game was and not the industry that they were trying to stick it to. Because nothing is more disingenuous than a group of people wanting to stick it to somebody and then not even enjoying the things that they like. One example that comes to mind is someone who said that they love Warhammer. They love Warhammer 40k. They love the whole setting, the factions, the characters, the battles, but they felt that the universe itself was too grim dark and they wanted it toned down. But anyways, you didn't come here to hear me ramble about unrelated things. You came here to hear an honest opinion about Crimson Desert and whether or not you should play it and if it's right for you. When you open up the game, it's not hard to see that they put a lot of work into the environments and the characters. There are some things though, such as fire and water textures, that don't quite land their mark. And any complaints that I can make about the graphics in the first couple of hours, it'd be just nitpicking and minor. It is a very beautiful game, and it is a very detailed game. That being said, a lot of studios do like to cut corners as they go, so maybe late game it starts getting a little more muddled. But this is just taking a look at the first 2 hours of gameplay, so you can decide from there. One of the things that goes against this game compared to other games of its type is its very steep learning curve. It's going to take a little bit of effort to actually learn how to play. And I'm not talking about like, oh, follow the yellow adventure line, but like that is a little part of it. But I'm talking there is a lower focus on making sure you know the mechanics you need to know before you can go on. And that sounds strange, but let me get into it. So right at the beginning of the game, you're thrown into a combat, and it makes sure to pause the combat to show you the key to press. But what it doesn't do in the moment is tell you what the key does. Later on, there are similar tutorials for using the Shining Blade and the sticky hand mechanic, but it briefly touches on it, and then you're just kind of expected to pull it off like right out of the gate. I had a few game journo moments, especially with the sticky hand, where I couldn't figure out how to bring it back again, despite using it successfully the first time and turning the puzzle piece the way I needed to.
And it's gone.
And for the life of me, I couldn't get it back up again. I recognize that it is mostly a skill issue when it comes to that, but part of it does come down to the controls. When I started, like before I even started the game, Steam had recommended that I use a controller for the best experience.
The lie detector test determined that was a lie.
Didn't matter what controller, it had like 5 different ones on the board. I was like, oh, cool. So I threw that on. I'm using a DualSense. Then I get in, and a lot of the key bindings and controls are a little awkward. For instance, they have the button to pick up and the button to jump as the same button, which is fine. The use key is what the use key is. But you need to be looking very close or directly at whatever you want to use, or else you're just going to stand there jumping, which happened to me a bunch. I eventually got so frustrated and pissed off that I put my controller like right down, went right to my keyboard, and continued playing the game from there. So would I recommend using a controller for this game? Absolutely not. Until they patch where the controller is a little more usable, I'd probably stay away from using a controller for this game. Something to note with the mechanics as well is there's a very strange mechanic where you don't know what anything in the world is. It's almost as if Cliff has lost all memory and he doesn't understand what a dog is unless he touches it.
Holy Jesus! What is that? What the fuck is that?
Which is a strange mechanic, and I feel it's very weird, especially when you're in a shop and then you see a bunch of question marks that you don't know what a bunch of meat looks like, and then you have to hover over it for a couple seconds so Cliff recognizes, hey, that's a steak. I know what a steak is. Or I do now. One of the mechanics I do like, though, is the ability to fast forward through dialogue. I would rather be able to fast forward it and still catch everything that's being said versus skipping it and then missing out on something important entirely. One of the biggest complaints I could make would be about the story. I'm not saying that the story is bad, but most of the story that you get from the get-go is that you're in a mercenary group, you die, you come back, go to a camp, you give a bum a coin, you free a lady from the sewer, you get a cat down from a roof, they're all wizards or some shit anyways. You go up to some sky palace, and when you leave, you're basically told, hey, figure it out.
The world is yours to explore.
There's just some key takeaways that I would go with it, and that would be, don't go into the game with controller set in mind. I know I like playing with a controller, but this is definitely a game for keyboard and mouse. From what I heard, the devs haven't abandoned it. They're still actively updating the game as we speak, so even by the time I'm finished editing this video, a lot of things might have changed already. But going back to earlier, when I said that someone had stated that Warhammer 40k was a little too grim-dark for them, that only makes me remember that not every setting is for everyone. There is going to be some people that really like this game. There's going to be some people that really dislike this game for the exact same reasons. As I'm editing, I am sitting at over 2 hours. I had no problem playing over that 2-hour mark without feeling very overwhelmed or frustrated to the point where I wanted to just put the game down and never go back to it. I hear it's also a very, very long game. And if you're into long fantasy RPGs, this might be for you. Just remember, if you enjoy things, go for the things you enjoy. If you don't enjoy things, don't try to force it. Because if you try to force it, you're not going to enjoy it. But it is always worth it to give something a try and to get out of your comfort zone. But anyways, should you play this game? Well, I'd say to give it a try if your computer can handle it. I certainly enjoyed it. And yeah, have a good night.
What the hell is even that?